St Kilda General Manager Ian Stewart is one of our special guests on World of Sport today, and the reason is because in the past couple of weeks not only has the club at Moorabbin copped a lot of flack, but so too has Ian himself. In fact, one of our panellists, Crackers Keenan, only last week suggested that possibly the administration should get out from St Kilda. If they're not having success, then heads should roll. It happens with players. Why should it not happen with administration? Now, Crackers, firstly to you, I know I listened to you on radio coming into World of Sport, and then on World of Sport you suggested, right, the administration should go.
When you're not having success and you've been there 3 or 4 years and you've gone and purchased players and they're not working, you're getting beaten by 110, 140, 113 points, and then yesterday 6 goals against the young side in the mud at the MCG, and you look at it and you say, well, we're not going to go anywhere. Something's got to happen. They've sacked the coaches. They sacked Mike Patterson and then Alex Jezelenko and Tony Jewell. They haven't sacked Graham Jolly yet. So you can't blame the coaches because 2 of those coaches were premiership coaches. You just haven't got any players. I watched them the first 2 games when 110, 140, and they weren't even competitive. So as a situation, you look at the club and you say, well, something's got to give. Either you sack your players or someone hasn't recruited the right players in the last 3 years, because when you recruit an 18-year-old kid, 3 years' time, he's going to be a 21-year-old seasoned player.
All right. Now, just hold it there, because Ian, thank you for joining us on World of Sport. Now, what he's saying is, mate, you've got to go. You do the bulk of the recruiting, do you not, at St Kilda?
Well, the responsibility stops with me, yes.
Right. Well, how do you answer Crackers who suggested that?
Well, I'd like to start from the beginning. I started with the club at the end of October '82, so I've had 2 seasons and 4 games.
3.
At the end of '82 and before the start of '83, that my staff and myself cut contracts and transfer fees to interstate players by the sum of $300,000.
Well, you got rid of Linky and Slater and Hewitt and Milan Treletic, the South Australians.
Cut playing contracts and transfer fees before we started the '83 season by $300,000. Then we went out to start to recruit players. Now, Max Crowe was swapped for Doug Cox. In that year, Max Crowe won the best and fairest, and Doug Cox played 2 games with Essendon and is now playing in South Australia. We also swapped Terry Smith for Darryl Hewitt, who went to Richmond, and Darryl Hewitt played 1 game with Richmond. In that year, Terry Smith finished 4th in our best and fairest, and in the second year finished 6th in our best and fairest. In that year, in the same year, we recruited Silvio Fascini through the courts and Paul Morwood. We believed that we were the club that took on the rules. We believed the rules were invalid, and eventually that the football public and the football people will realise that by challenging the VFL rules and the end result was a system now where that equality will eventually prevail, where you've got caps on players and seals, where bottom teams have the chance to be able to compete on a excuse me, Peter, I'm stating the facts from when we started. Now, St Kilda did take on the VFL and took on the rules. There are a set of rules now which are valid, which are fair to all clubs and all players. It was St Kilda that took it on. Okay. Then we went to Western Australia and drafted Alan Sidebottom. We had second choice. In that particular year, Western Australian clubs were charging VFL clubs anywhere between $200 and $300 for $300,000 for transfer fees. St Kilda said, no, we will not pay that sort of money. We went to the National Football League and secured a transfer fee for Alan Sidebottom for $85,000. The first club to get a player from the Swan Districts Football Club in total transfer fee without leasing. There are a number of VFL clubs presently paying up to $80,000 a year lease for VFL players. St Kilda own Alan Sidebottom. That was in 83. Now let's, do you want to say something now, or will I continue?
I'm just worried about you took on the rules of the VFL over Fascini and Morwood and played them, but then last year you went, when you were in financial trouble and you couldn't meet the payments for your old champions, You went to the VFL, and under the auspices of the VFL, you paid 22.5 cents to the dollar to Alan Jeans and Barry Breen and Paul Curry and Bruce Stuparuzel. Do you believe, like, you know, you challenged the rules, which was great, in your benefit, and then when you needed the VFL and needed assistance to govern, get you out of strife and sort of help you, you went to the VFL and tried to use them, but you've already tried to wreck them earlier, a year and a half before.
Well, we didn't try to wreck them. We
checked the rules.
We explained the reason why we took the Vicini thing to court, because we believed that the competition, the way it was being conducted and the rules were invalid and unfair to clubs that were struggling. Now, as far as the scheme of arrangement is concerned, or was concerned, when Lindsay Fox's administration came into office 5.5 years ago, there was a debt of $1.5 million. The situation was this, that we were allowed to trade and exist as long as we didn't accumulate any additional debts. Now, that had been done for the period of Fox's administration. But the administrators said, that's a scheme of arrangement said, unless you can pay off that $1.5 million, there will no longer be a St Kilda Football Club. Now, the only alternative that was open to Lindsay Fox and his board was this. Either they trade out of that scheme by paying 22.5 cents in the dollar and 7 cents in the dollar, or no St Kilda. That scheme was put towards the former players and the creditors, and they accepted that, which allowed St Kilda in October last year to remain viable and wipe the debt. Now, I feel that some of your resentment about St Kilda is to do with that scheme of arrangement. Now, that debt was accumulated over a 15-year period, which came to a head when Lindsay Fox moved in, saw the debt, and said, what the hell's been going on? So he did something constructive about it. The main wish of that administration was that St Kilda remain in the VFL, and that's been achieved. And I believe that's a wonderful achievement.
The players at the start of this year, Mace, Burns, Roberts, Terry Smith and Crowe, all wanted to, and Burns have got him, and Cunningham, all were sent around the VFL rumour mongers that they were up for sale or wanted to leave.
Well, can I answer that question when I get into season 84?
It's going to be a long day.
Well, you know, you're the one that's making the accusations without the facts.
Well, I'm just sort of saying your club's not competitive and you've got to blame somebody.
You said that...
I'm blaming you.
Well, thank you. And in 1984, we went to Western Australia and we recruited Phil Narkle and Phil Cronin. At that time, there was an agreement between the VFL and the Western Australian Football League that hopefully that a transfer fee of $65,000 would come into effect. We said, that's all we're paying. So he paid that to be paid over 2 years. 1 week earlier, a VFL club paid for another player $240,000 from the same state. Now, you call that poor administration? Well, I don't, and we don't.
Well, your results are out on the ground.
Now, I agree with that. I'm not denying the results. I'm talking about...
If you pay...
I'm talking about Fox's position and my position, because those are the two positions that you are criticising over the past week.
If you pay $200,000 for a player, it doesn't mean to say he's any good, and if you pay $35 for a player, he could turn out a champion. I'm saying that the personnel that you've chosen to represent St Kilda in the last 3 years, well, I've watched 83, I watched 84 and 80, and the 2 games of 85. I watched 14 games last year. I was your number one, knocker, you wouldn't say supporter, and I just reckon you're not competitive. Okay, so you've got to blame somebody.
Okay, so in 83, Alan Sidebottom played half a season. In 84, he finished 5th in the best and fairest. In 84, Phil Cronin finished 4th in the best and fairest. And as I said, Terry Smith in the previous year finished 4th and 6th. So you don't know what you're talking about.
But you still finished last.
I agree with that. But you're not talking about you're talking about the administration, and it's an inefficiency. Now, I am qualifying the points of the administration, of the staff of the St Kilda Football Club, because we don't like those innuendos. We don't believe that you've got any basis of fact or knowledge. Now, that's all I'm here to explain. It's up to the coach and the match committee to talk about our playing performances. I'm talking about the administration side of it.
Well, if you haven't got any socks, you can't pull them up. And a coach can only coach as well as he's given, the material he's given. And the coaches that you had, Alex Jeslenka, a premiership coach, Tony Jewell, a premiership coach, a Mike Patterson, a premiership coach in South Australia, You know, like they have got to have something going for them.
I agree that the calibre of player we have at St Kilda isn't up to standard. Now let's go on to another point. You've criticised, or one of your colleagues has, junior development, which is a scheme which was adopted by loyal...
One of your colleagues, not me.
One of your colleagues. I don't know whether you did or not. You probably would have had you have had the background of it. But out of our junior development, which has been run by dedicated people, we have produced Tony Lockett, Rod Owen, Frank Cabone, Danny Frawley, Andrew Manning, who played his first game yesterday, and a kid called Mark Dwyer. Now let me go a little bit further, please. That last year, out of our under-19 side, we recruited 23 players from other zones, metropolitan zones, that played in our under-19 side, out of our list of 50. Now, our best and fairest winner in our under-19 player last year was from another zone, and so was our runner-up. We then put a submission to the VFL last year, which said this: we believe that the metropolitan zones are inadequate. We believe that we don't have anywhere near the sides in our zones to be competitive. We produced facts which showed that we have, in underage football, 111 teams as against the average of 200 teams. That submission was adopted by the VFL, and we were given the second part of Frankston. Now, the other half of Frankston, which we've now got. Now, in the previous part of 2 or 3 years, I know you're bored, Crackers, because your concentration's...
But everybody has gotten doing something in junior development. You're not alone. We spend 200,000 on our area, or Melbourne Football Club does too, but we don't have to go and tell everybody about that because they know what we're doing.
I'm not finished, Sandy, please, because...
Stuart, we'll be in trouble with the tribunal.
No, please, look, please, because out of that other half of Frankston, which we now have got, Brereton, McCarthy, Mew, Shields and Loveridge came out of that other zone which we've now got. Now, can I go on to the players that you mentioned about Crowe, Roberts, Maxie Crowe? Well, there's a financial disagreement. Michael Roberts has been settled. Smith's been settled. Tony Lockett was offered $200,000 to go to Collingwood. We have signed Tony Lockett up for 5 years at a much reduced figure to stay with us. Jeff Cunningham was offered $250,000 for 3 years to go to Carlton. Jeff Cunningham has been signed up for life to finish his career at St Kilda. The recruits for this year, Jeff Ablett, no transfer fee, and playing very well, I might add. Greg McAdam, the standard transfer fee between South Australia and Victoria is up to $65,000. We pay for Greg $500 per senior game. Bad administration, you say.
He was down. Was down at Geelong originally, wasn't he? In Cold. He was picked up in draft down there.
And he was our best player.
He played out of Alice Springs last year, didn't he?
Yes, that's right. But he still had to be cleared from North Adelaide.
He didn't have a dispute and wasn't wanted there last year.
That has nothing to do with the police. That happens to most players where they have some sort of... That's wives' bloody tales talking like that. Excuse me, I haven't quite finished, Jack.
How long?
Another couple of minutes, thank you.
All right, good.
One of the most important things about the quality of your players on the field, when this administration and the staff that now works there started at St Kilda, there was a residual value of $800,000 on our players. The market has dropped, the values of players have dropped. There is now a residual value of over $1 million on our players. Now, surely that is competent administration from the Fox administration board, myself and my staff. Now, how can you justify to criticise that in business, in commercial business? We have doubled our residual value of our players in 2 years. Now, can I finish on the final point, Sandy, please?
Yep.
The McKinsey report, which was commissioned by the VFL, says this: St Kilda's administration costs are $125,000 less than the average, and to put a football team onto the field, St Kilda Football Club, this is on a McKinsey report with the VFL commissioners, they spend per year, every year, between $350,000 and $500,000 per year less than the average VFL club. Now, I'm saying, how the bloody hell can we be competitive when we've got those restrictions on income? The St Kilda people, and that includes a lot of people, are working their butts off to be competitive. I agree in the first 3 games we weren't, but it is no fault of the coaching people, it is no fault of the board or the administrators.
Ian, I'd like to close with 2 questions, and I'd like one one-word answers. Do you still believe that Ian Stewart, Cracker, should resign?
Yes.
Would you quit? One word.
No, look, this... What's his nickname?
Crackers.
We won't call each other nicknames.
No,
eh?
but we know, he's crackers, he does... what facts has he supported? What facts has he supported to say I should resign?
Your players condemn you, and their performance in the last 2 or 3 years condemn the administration. Like, every time you sack a player, and that's good. The committee sack players.
I asked for a one-word answer. Jack, would you
Thank you
please
very
come
much
in, and Ian,
indeed.
thank you for joining
Now,
us.
Stewie, we've heard all about that. We'll have the household products there for you from Mrs. Bright. Just hold on those, will you? This will you can cool down with this with Coca-Cola. It's beautiful. We have the 4 and 20 pies for you too. Nothing for you, Cracker, at all. And of course we've got the Bertocchi small goods, and this is a beautiful ham, and also some bacon in there for you to cool you down at dinner time.
Lovely, thank you, Jack, and many thanks
for coming in too.
to Ian
Stewie.
Stewart. Yeah, thanks, Stewie, for coming in and explaining that. We'll take a break. More on World of Sport in just...